You know that feeling when the ground under your boots hums with purpose, like it's whispering your family's story back to you? That's how it felt that morning, standing by the creek that snakes through my land my grandpa worked, my dad loved, and now I'm fighting to keep. But I never thought firing up my old bulldozer to fix a crumbling bank would spark a war with the neighborhood HOA, a bunch of clipboard warriors who thought they could bully me off my own dirt. It all started with a low growl from my beat-up Massey Ferguson, a beast older than half the houses in Willow Creek Estates. I was out there at dawn, the air sharp with wet earth and pine, moving riprap to shore up a creek bank that spring rains had chewed to hell. The last storm left it jagged, roots dangling like broken bones, a death trap for any kid wandering too close to the trail. I called the county, got the green light no permit needed for private land and started working. Simple, right? Fix the land, keep it safe, honor the promise I made to my dad to never let this place fall apart. But then, like a scene from some bad cop show, a black SUV rolled up, Willow Creek security plastered on the side, and two guys in matching polos stepped out, acting like they owned the damn county. The taller one, sunglasses perched like he was auditioning for Top Gun, waved a clipboard at me. "Sir, you need to shut that machine down now. Heavy equipment's banned on community land." I killed the engine, stepped off, felt the mud give under my boots, and looked him dead in the eye. "This ain't community land, pal. This is my property, and I'm saving a bank that's about to collapse." The other guy, shorter, with a radio clipped to his belt like he was ready to call in a SWAT team, smirked. "HOA got complaints. You're violating code 12 compromised creek alterations." I almost laughed. "You're standing on my deed. The public trail ends 200 yards up that way." I pointed to where the path curved behind the cul-de-sac. But they weren't here to reason, they were here to flex. Sunglasses jabbed a finger at my bulldozer. "Keep going, and we'll tow it. $500 a day in fines, plus environmental fees if we find damage." I crossed my arms, kept my voice steady. "Call your tow truck. But when the sheriff shows up, you better have your story straight." They snapped a few photos of me, the creek, my rig, then peeled out, leaving me with a knot in my gut. I knew this wasn't over. By noon, my inbox was flooded cease and desist, fine notices, a summons to a mandatory HOA hearing. It was like they declared war, and I was just some old guy with a shovel and a deed they thought they could steamroll. Now, I'm no lawyer, but I'm not dumb either. I spent a decade with the Army Corps of Engineers, mapping flood zones, building levees, learning every inch of what makes land legally yours. And this land, it's more than mine, it's my family's. My great-grandpa bought it in 1923, passed it to my grandpa, then my dad, and now me. The deed's clear as day. The house, the creek, the woods, even the whole damn watershed feeding it. Hell, the HOA's precious nature trail, built on my property without so much as a handshake. I'd let it slide for years, didn't want the hassle, but now they'd crossed a line, and I wasn't about to roll over. I spent that afternoon walking my property, checking survey markers, snapping pictures, pulling up GPS cords on my old Garmin. Everything checked out. The deed, the county records, even a 1955 water rights agreement my grandpa signed at it all screamed one thing: this is mine. That night, I spread the papers across my kitchen table, the same table where my wife, Ellie, used to sketch wildflowers while the creek sang outside. She'd been gone 4 years, cancer stealing her away, but her love for this place still lived in every blade of grass. I wasn't just fighting for dirt, I was fighting for her, for my dad, for every story this land held. Next morning, I was tightening bolts on the bulldozer when I heard gravel crunch. 3 cars, this time 2 sedans, and that damn SUV again. Out stepped Linda Voss, HOA president, all designer heels and a scarf that cost more than my monthly electric bill. She'd been a thorn since we moved here, always nitpicking our fence height or the shade of our mailbox. Now she'd brought a camera crew, a skinny kid with a lens trailing her like she was filming a reality show. "Mr. Carter," she called, voice dripping with fake sweetness. This is your last chance to comply before we take action. I wiped grease off my hands, walked over, kept my cool. Action? Linda, you're on my land. That creek's on my deed, not your newsletter. She didn't blink, just nodded to the camera. Our legal team says your bulldozer's too close to a community waterway. That's HOA jurisdiction. I laughed, couldn't help it. You think your boardroom vote trumps a century-old title? Get real. She leaned in, voice low, like we were sharing a secret. We have standards, Tom. Every homeowner signs on for them. Not me. I shot back. My family was here before your subdivision was a blueprint. She handed me an envelope, fines, citations, some nonsense about visual hazards, and strutted off. Her crew filming like this was Oscar-worthy. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a creek bank. This was personal. Linda wanted control, and I was the guy who wouldn't bow. So I called Sarah Klein, a real estate lawyer I'd worked with when we settled Ellie's estate. Sharp as a tack, no patience for BS. I brought her my deed, the water rights, the survey maps. She read them in silence, then looked up, eyes gleaming. Tom, you don't just own the creek, you own the whole watershed. Every drop from the ridge to the culvert. I nodded. I know. They don't. She grinned. They're about to. We filed an injunction with the county, barring the HOA from touching my land. Then we sent a letter demanding they remove their signs, benches, even the little bridge they'd slapped their logo on. I'd built that bridge myself years ago, after a storm took out the old log crossing. Seeing their plaque on it, that stung. But I wasn't just defending my property now, I was defending Ellie's wildflowers, my dad's fishing lessons, the promise I made to my son, Ben, before he shipped out to the Navy. This land was our blood, and no HOA was going to rewrite that. Things got heated fast. The HOA doubled down, emailing me a fancy PDF with my own land survey stolen and rebranded with their logo, claiming the creek as shared resources. I forwarded it to Sarah with 2 words, game on. At the county clerk's office, I met Ruth, a records tech who'd seen it all. She pulled my file deeds, maps, even a 1972 letter from my grandpa to the state, locking in our watershed rights. You're the 4th HOA fight this year, she said, shaking her head. They never learn. I left with a notarized stack of proof thicker than a Bible. Then came the HOA's big show, an open board meeting at the community center. I hadn't been there since Ellie's memorial, but I showed up, deed in hand, ready to drop a bomb. Linda was at the front, all polished and smug, clicking through a PowerPoint about protecting our trails. She never said my name, but everyone knew who she meant when she mentioned unregulated construction. I stood up, walked to the mic, and let it rip. I'm Tom Carter. That creek, those trails, the trees theory mine. Not yours. You've been lied to. The HOA's got no claim, and I've got the papers to prove it. The room went dead quiet. Linda's smile cracked. I kept going, laying out the injunction, the county's backing, the state's water rights. Keep pushing, I said, and you'll see this in court. I walked out, leaving whispers in my wake. That night, I sat by the creek, stars overhead, thinking of my dad's words, stand like stone, Tom. They'll blow themselves out. He was right. The next day, the sheriff showed up not for me, but for them. The HOA's tow truck guy had called in a hostile homeowner, not realizing he was on protected land. 2 DNR officers tagged along, reading my deed out loud to Linda's crew, issuing violations for their signs and benches. Linda's face went white as they packed up their cameras and slunk away. The fallout was swift. The county audited the HOA, found they'd misused funds on their fake cops, and forged memos. Linda resigned, slipped out of town like a ghost. The new board sent me a check, legal fees, repairs, a little extra to keep me quiet. I didn't want their money. I wanted my land free. So I took it further. With Sarah's help, I turned the creek into a teaching ground. Got a $20,000 grant, built a shelter with benches, solar lights, water testing kits for kids. Schools came, third graders, middle schoolers, even a homeschool co-op. I showed them how the creek breathes, how cattails clean the water, how my great-grandpa's orchard once drank from this flow. They listened, wide-eyed, some touching mud for the first time. One day, a kid named Lucas, maybe 10, left a note in the shelter's guest book. "This place feels like home. Thanks for saving it." That hit me harder than any court win. This wasn't just my fight, Anna Marie, it was theirs, too. Neighbors started showing up, volunteering, planting native grasses, sweeping sawdust. Even the new HOA president, a quiet librarian named Grace, brought coffee and stayed to help. The creek wasn't just land, no, it was a story we were all telling. When Ben came home that spring, he walked the trail with me, quiet at first, then asking about the trust, the shelter, the fight. "You took them down, Dad," he said, voice thick. "Mom would have loved this." I nodded, throat tight. "She's still here, in the wildflowers." He touched the deed later that night, promised he'd carry it on. By summer, the county named the Watershed a heritage site, untouchable by any future HOA. It was safe forever. Looking back, I think about that first morning, the bulldozer's rumble, Linda's smug grin, the cameras in my face. They thought I'd fold, thought I was just some stubborn old man. They didn't know I carried a century of promises in my pocket, a wife's memory in my heart, a son's future in my hands. They came with noise, but I answered with truth. And the creek? It just kept flowing, like it always will. So what do you think? Ever had to stand up to a bully with a clipboard? Drop a comment. Tell me your story. Did you fight? Or did you walk away? And if you like this, share it. Let's remind the world what happens when you stand like stone.